Yeah.
Over to you, Holly. Go for it. Do your magic.
Fantastic. Just a reminder for those, some of you have heard this already, but just a reminder, the talk that is going on at 2:30 that I can give you no details about, the special guest, he's the kind of person who only has a first name. That talk, please do not take photographs during that talk. And a reminder, you've all already been told, red lanyards. Stop taking photos of the red lanyards, people. There you go. Also, this is not a talk. What we had arranged, we did a call for papers, we asked everybody to submit, we had a reserves list, it was all going very well. And we said, what happens if somebody drops out on the day or the day before or something like that? And I said, I will put a talk together. And then 2 days ago, I thought, this is all going well. It's no problem. I'll just skip my talk. I'll be out on the vendor stage. And then yesterday, I got confirmation. No, you are talking. So don't worry. I had a talk. It's all prepared. But it is one of my usual talks where I'm just going to rant about things that have annoyed me about computers. So this week, things that have annoyed me about computers is this little guy. This little guy here. So anyone who's seen Akimbo before, seen me talk before, we give foxes as a giveaway. If anyone is sitting there thinking, why are the foxes the giveaways? I'm in charge of the marketing budget and they are cute. What further information do you need? So if you'd like a fox, how agile are you? There's a lot of people in this room. So we have some foxes to give away. If you want a fox, fantastic. Grab them from the front, or there's some more on our stand as well. One of the things that I wanted to do to advertise the foxes was create this little fella here that I mentioned a second ago. And I thought, I need an image of a fox. And everybody's telling me that my job is going to be replaced by AI soon. So AI must be able to make me an image of a fox. My experience with AI this week has not been a good one. I went on to DALL-E, or whichever is your image generation AI of choice. I said, make me a fox sitting down on a white background. That's my prompt if you'd like to recreate my frustration. And it gave me a cartoon, giant eyes, wonderful little fox. And I said, less cute. And tone it down a bit, ChatGPT, it's B-sides. And it sent me this image. Not on a white background, on like an eggshell background, an off-white background. So of course in my slides it didn't look right. It wasn't quite what it should be. White background, please. ChatGPT goes, that is a white background. Wow. This became a 10-minute rant of me fighting ChatGPT about a freaking existential crisis by the end of it, talking about what is the fundamental underlining meaning of the word white. And I tried everything. I tried hex codes and everything, and it wouldn't work. And eventually I gave up and I said, transparent background. And it went, no problem. And it regenerated the image without, the grey squares for the transparent background. It wasn't transparent at all. So, yeah, whoever mentioned AI earlier, I know Stu mentioned it, but it's been in the talk this morning as well. I don't think AI is going to replace me soon, or it's certainly not going to make a freaking transparent background for me. So, for anyone who's not seen me talk before, my name's Holly Grace. I'm a penetration tester, so everything that I talk about when I approach security is talking about hacking computers. And this talk is based around some frustrations that I've had this week, talking to customers and the way that they're approaching security and some guidance that I'd like to give for those. And also just a little bit of a frustration. I was talking to somebody this morning, they were asking about is there any content out there to share with people at the very early stages of getting into cybersecurity? Specifically, what they were talking about was young people that can be shared with educators to try and help them grow into cybersecurity. And there is, and I'm not going to stand up front and say there's no content like that at all, because there's some good organizations putting some good stuff out there. But my God, is there some bad things out there as well. And my God, is there some bad guidance in general about cybersecurity. So whilst we do talks like this, and we all talk about the cutting edge of security, and people talk about things like what I spoke about last time I was here, talking about using AI during penetration tests and cutting edge stuff, that kind of thing. Today I'm going to rant about how awful computers are, and dear God, can we stop writing terrible software? So, I was given this speaking slot, I was given very short notice to do it, and they said, we want you to do a keynote. So welcome to my talk titled, What the Fuck is a Keynote? And you can imagine, I'm on slide 3, and my plan this whole way is, I'll ask ChatGPT, it's fine, it'll help me out. But we've just done the transparent image thing, so that's not helping me at all. So I asked some friends, I said, what should I do in a keynote? What is the kind of thing that I should do? And they explain how the industry has changed over the last 10 years. explain how the industry might develop in the future, and inspire people for the future. So I'm going to do my best to do that. You might not leave this room thinking, cybersecurity is great, I'm glad I'm here. You might leave this room thinking, yeah, computers are awful, aren't they? But we'll see. So, we've spoken about AI, and AI is a fantastic thing. And in fact, I spoke about AI last time I was here in terms of how we use it during penetration testing. So anyone didn't see that talk and wants me to do encore material at the end about how, from an offensive security point of view, we use AI. It is a fantastic tool, but the truth of the matter is it's also the worst thing in the world. Some people might have seen me post this image and similar images to LinkedIn recently. Like I say, I've been writing some training material. I'm trying to get some of that entry-level stuff for people breaking into cybersecurity. And one of the things that I did was I asked ChatGPT to give me a diagram of a UK 3-pin plug. And this is what it did. And I wanted to post it as a bit of a cathartic post, something to LinkedIn where I can get the community to rally behind me and reassure me and say, yeah, we're not quite there yet, but still, isn't AI amazing? Yeah, it didn't quite get the image that you wanted, but we're on our way to inspire the masses. And because you're all cynics, all I got was lines along the lines of, which wire's the blue wire? And if you can't see that from the back, the blue wire is the yellow one. It's the one just above the lerf. So last time I spoke about how AI was fantastic. We use AI during penetration tests to do things like data mapping. So for example, when we gain access to a network or we compromise a user account, and I want to demonstrate things like poor management of PII, AI is really good at those kinds of tasks where I can give it a screenshot, give it an image of a passport, a utility bill, a driving license, whatever, and say, scan the network and find me more of these. And then customers think we're magic because they go, how did you find all of these files? Optical character recognition and some quite frankly basic artificial intelligence. So it is great, but we're not quite there yet. The second rant before I start talking about how we can develop things and make good in the future is we have a vulnerability management platform. When we find vulnerabilities on pen tests, we put it into a nice interface. It's a bit like a ticket management system if you've not seen our interface. Here's a vulnerability. The customer can add notes to it. They can say, right, we've fixed it in this way, or this is the approach. We can have a bit of a discussion and then retest it and mark it as fixed. We have this. One of our customers is using this platform and they messaged me and said, can your platform export to Excel? Yes, you press this button here and it'll give you an Excel spreadsheet, but being given a vulnerability management platform, there's still a whole bunch of companies out there whose risk management strategy looks like this. And this is what they present to the board. I was talking to somebody this morning about this, in fact, and their rant was not about the use of Excel, but their rant was presenting CVSS scores to the board. That's another thing that company does. Some people laughing out loud there because, yeah, sometimes as an industry, the way that we present things in the adult room is maybe not as great as it should be. So far I'm absolutely raging because it's like Tuesday at this point and somebody's asking me if I can give them all of the vulnerability information in a spreadsheet. I'm like, oh God, but I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be inspiring you. So I'm trying to wedge this slide in and be like, things aren't that bad really. There's work to be done. And I said, right, what is the problem that I'm trying to address? What is the problem that I'm trying to talk to? How do I build up to it to inspire things? And I thought, really, I can break this down into two things. There is good guidance out there, but good guidance is slow to get around. Like I said, I didn't want to get to the front and say, there is no information out there for people in the early stages of their career. There's no information for people out there in college, pre-university, things like that, because there is, but it's slow to get around. And the sad thing is, bad guidance is constantly reinforced. And I see this all the time. I'm going to show you a couple of screenshots. One I've shown previously in talks as my usual go-to for this is bad security guidance. But actually recently, a company that I interact with, I'm not going to name them, but some of you might recognize the screenshots, just did another example of this terrible thing. And I think this is something that a lot of companies don't try and counteract. Maybe you're putting out information out there about, like, you have annual security awareness training or things like that, and you're telling your customers what you think is the good guidance. But you're not necessarily realizing that for the other 364 days of the year, they are constantly having bad guidance reinforced. So we'll show you some of the bad guidance to prove that point, and then I will leave it as an exercise for the reader to how do you deal with that? How do you fight that bad guidance and make sure that your good messaging is getting through? And I'm also going to talk about gaming outcomes. I've spoken about this previously a couple of times in the context of things like phishing engagements and where companies think that they are doing a good thing for security, but actually it's not. Before I get onto that, so you know what I mean about gaming your outcomes, a good example of this is if you work as a CISO and you want to get like a pay rise or a promotion or you want to get like on the adults table or whatever, and you want like some project that you can point at for, look how good at security I am. Phishing campaigns are a great thing to do. Because what you can do is you can send an example phishing email out that is really, really well crafted. You know, it's got a good URL in there, something that would be hard to spot. It's tailored to the person that you're sending it to, those kinds of things. Send those phishing emails around. Loads of people will fall for it because we're all humans. We'll all click the link. The bad thing will occur, right? Then do a security awareness training session. Doesn't really matter what you say. Then send a second phishing email around. That's like one of those 419 scams where it's like, I have won the lottery and want to share it with you. Click here. And nobody will click the link. And then you can stand up to the board and say, dramatic improvements in our phishing scores. The worrying thing is somebody's writing that down, aren't they? It's like, that is how I'm getting my promotion. But that is what I mean about gaming outcomes. I'm going to talk a little bit more in the context of penetration testing, but it's that kind of thing that I'm talking about. So guidance is slow moving and there's a lot of bad guidance out there. I still come across organizations. In fact, last week I was speaking to somebody who is a medical practitioner, so non-technical role, they work in medicine, and they were complaining that the organization that they work for makes them reset their password every 30 days. Hopefully, everybody's nodding in the audience, hopefully everyone understands that. You shouldn't be enforcing password rotation. It's bad. If you've never come across this before, if you enforce rapid password rotation, all of your staff members' passwords are going to get weaker because instead of choosing good, hard to remember, but complex passwords, they're going to go summer 2024, winter 2024, because you're making them rotate them a lot. Or presumably that person, because they're freaking every 30 days, they've probably got like Monday 1, Tuesday 2, because they've got to cycle them so frequently. So this is what I mean about good guidance is out there, but it's slow to get around, and bad guidance is constantly reinforced. Example number 1. The MCSE has been advising against password expiry, password rotation since 2015. That quotation is from the NCSE. So if you work for an organization that enforces password rotation, the NCSE has been banging that drum for 9 years. So that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. If this is your first time coming across this guidance, please don't do that. Sometimes there's some nuance here, and of course, password rotation is trying to address a real risk. The same as password complexity, another good example of this. Enforcing users to use symbols and numbers in their password, that kind of thing. There is a risk that people are trying to address with that. I will just give you the short story, because I've only got 25 minutes, and it is that the bad outcome will outweigh the thing that you are trying to solve. If you do have a specific risk in mind that you think password rotation is addressing, you must balance that with the fact that that woman's password's now Wednesday 3. Cool. So, good guidance is slow to get around. The NCSE wrote that quotation that says, stop doing this 9 years ago, and we're still seeing it. And bad guidance is constantly reinforced. Here's my usual screenshot. This is M365, if anybody's nerdy enough to recognize it just from that little clip. I was setting up an account for a user, usually I'm doing test accounts or a new team member accounts or those kinds of things. And I typed a really long password in there. It was a passphrase. It was probably 9 or 10 words that I typed in there originally. And the screenshot said, this password is not strong enough. I went, oh, okay, passphrase. I guess there's something wrong with it. I used a password manager and I randomly generated a password. I don't know how many characters are in that password, but can we just say enough? Enough characters in that password? And this password is not strong enough. And I'm sure every other, you cybersecurity professionals, right, you've realized what this is. We're going to talk about complexity here. And I'll get to that in a second. But one of the things is, a user might type a password like this, thinking that maybe they've heard previously, or maybe they just thought about it themselves, and they think, that's what a long, secure password should look like. They think it's strong, and then Microsoft tells them that it's not. And what they take away from that is, that's not a strong password. So they try a few combinations and mess around with it. Maybe they read the error message in black there, and they come up with something else. And my new staff member at Kimbo Core goes, right, got it, strong password according to Microsoft. Kimbo 1, 2, 3. We all knew that was coming, right? And that's what I mean about bad guidance is constantly reinforced. Just in case anybody's very new to this stuff and doesn't understand why that occurs, in this particular case, Microsoft is enforcing complexity. Microsoft's complexity rules are you must have 3 of the 4 uppercase, lowercase numbers symbols. So because that previous password is only uppercase and lowercase, it is saying it is weak. You stick a 1 on the end, jumps to strong. So that's what we're getting at. If anyone wants to guess what the last character of my M365 password is, you're right. No, it's the digit 1. So this kind of thing. This slide has changed recently. I don't know exactly when, but it used to be password 123. And Microsoft now do flag password 1, password 123, anything like that as weak, because it's a terrible idea based on a previously brute force password, that kind of thing. Passwords in previous disclosures, known weak passwords like the word password, they're flagging something along those lines. So I changed it to Akimbo 123, which is terrible. That's fine. This is what I had prepared a week ago when I was on the can you please be our backup speaker in case somebody drops out on the day. And then yesterday, when I'm putting my slides together, incidentally, I needed to change my bank password. I'm not going to go into why that is. It's always a bad day whenever you have to do these kind of things. I went on my banking website and I received these 2 error messages. Don't strain your eyes in the back. I will read them out to you. The top one says, you've either not entered enough characters or you've entered too many.
What?
I love the just like exasperated sighs from the audience. It's just like, can you not work that out programmatically? Interestingly, this input in modern browsers, it has a max length parameter on the input, and it's set to 15 characters, so that should make you all cringe. Don't set short maximum password lengths. You cannot enter more than 15 characters. So it can't be too many then. You've restricted the input. Anyway, so there's a whole bunch of guidance that I could talk about here about why maximum password lengths exist and what they should be set to and things like that. I'm not going to worry about that. You're all professionals. I think everybody's getting the message that I'm getting across. The point of the slide is users are getting bad guidance constantly. If you're doing annual security awareness training, 3-4 times a day they're seeing error messages like this and they're struggling. Also, the bottom one just says, we are sorry, but the details you've entered aren't in the right format. Please check them and try again. What? So this is where I am for 20 minutes yesterday going, what? Because the only guidance they've given is your password must be 6 to 15 characters, including both letters and numbers. And I'm looking at going, that is between 6 and 15 characters and includes letters and numbers. What is the problem here? You cannot include symbols. So my password has a symbol in it, and therefore it is the incorrect format. At no point do they tell me this. So, here you go. I worked this out eventually by going to that website's security guidance, thinking, I genuinely couldn't originally. I worked it out after a few minutes. I couldn't work out why the password wasn't being accepted. I assumed that they hadn't just blocked all symbols. I thought maybe, I'd used a single quote or something and they disliked that for reasons we'll get onto. So swapped it for an exclamation mark, swapped it for an @ sign, all of that kind of thing. Couldn't get anything through. I checked their guidance, and this is, I swear I've not in any way manipulated this screenshot. This is a bank's guidance. Avoid using plain words in any language because they're more vulnerable. Fair enough. Avoid repetition and obvious sequences like 22222. Or try combining 2 unrelated words such as a memorable address with a car registration or birthday, not your own. Or try combining 2 unrelated items such as a memorable address with a car registration or birthday, not your own. Avoid using plain words in any language because they're more vulnerable. What? So I'm now sitting here thinking like, is this me? Do I need to call an ambulance? What is happening? But the best part, I neatly highlighted in the end, but I think you've all got it, is the fact that it says avoid repetition, and it gives you the guidance twice. So there's a few things that we could pick up from this. I could start talking about things like the NCSC recommend 3 random words. Hopefully everybody's come across that. If you haven't, it's worth taking a look at their idea. Think random, they call it. Hashtag think random, because people hashtag things like that. I don't think so. So it's worth reading their guidance on that, updating your approach. Good article. You may or may not agree with it. Reasonable adults will disagree about security guidance. But it's interesting that this bank took a different approach. And I like how they just kind of wedge not your own on the end there. Anyway, I'm beating the dead horse. users constantly come across this kind of thing. And users might look at some of these resources as a certain authority on these matters. And that's the reason that I've picked Microsoft and an online bank for my working examples. Because I'm sure in some cases, in fact, it might hurt you to think this, but in some cases, your users might trust their online bank's guidance more than the guidance you give them. Because they hold them up on a pedestal, right? This is an authoritative source of drivel. So this is something that I think we should take away. Yes, it's really, really good to focus on the cutting edge of security. And Lancaster University, you were here a minute ago talking about why you should fund research, and you definitely should do that. And it's great to look at the cutting edge, but don't forget those early stage things. So don't forget people who are in education still, or young people who are trying to get good guidance on just how on earth do they stay safe online. Somebody mentioned to me this morning, they have children, and their children are really starting to get into video games now. They are very young, and they're saying like, oh, we want to play COD and things like that. And they're like, you're like 6 years old. Why do you want to play COD? And they are, as an individual, struggling on that. Not only because is COD appropriate, I think many people would say not, but also there's a whole bunch of other games that this person themselves has not heard of. So they're like, you can imagine them frantically Googling, like, what is a Minecraft? And things like that. Small typo in that search can get you a whole different world, can't it? 2 people left and you should feel bad. But that's my point, is that if the adults themselves don't know, then, of course, we have some problems here. So yes, look at the cutting edge research. Yes, I can talk about AI. I can rant about my little fox. I can talk about SQL injection. I can talk about whatever you want, but there's a gap, I think, in the industry. The guidance exists, but for some reason we're not getting it out there. And then the last rant in the, I think, 4 minutes that I've got left is another thing that a customer mentioned to me recently. The customer requested a pen test, and it was all just normal. We go through the standard stages. It's an internal infrastructure pen test, so they say, come on site, try and hack our network, find as many vulnerabilities as you can, write a nice report. That's great. I love internal infrastructure assessments. Although I'm generally a web application specialist, internal infrastructure assessments are brilliant because very often there's just something somewhere that's bad. A recent example, a couple of weeks ago, I was doing an internal infrastructure, and the customer had backed up their virtual servers to a network share, and the network share was unprotected. Any domain user could access that network share. So just a brilliant example, because I get there 9:30 in the morning, I find this folder just full of VMDKs, just virtual machine hard disks, and I'm like, I am going to hack them. But the problem is these files are 100 gig each. So I am going to hack them in download 3.5 hours. And that was, obviously I go and I do my port scans, I do my network mapping, I carry on with the pen test, but that was the way in. It was 3.5 hours later, I downloaded a 100 gig server disk, mounted it, and pulled the hashes out of it. So that was brilliant. So sometimes, like internal infrastructure assessments are great, but in this particular case, in the 2 minutes that I've got, the customer wanted it to be delivered without the knowledge of the IT team, and it was time limited to a single day. That aspect was time limited to a single day. So for clarity, a week-long engagement or something like that, I don't remember. And for the first day of the engagement, they wanted to bring me into the company as if I was like a new starter, hide me away somewhere in an office and see what I could access. This actually turned out to be a really interesting engagement, and they did, in this instance, get good value from it. But I think everybody worked out there is a problem there, because there is a strong distinction between a pen test and a red team engagement. If you're not familiar with this stuff, if you don't look at the offensive security stuff very much, I will very quickly summarize it for you. Generally speaking, in a penetration test, it's a scope-limited engagement, so something like, please come to our office and test our internal network. It's time-limited, something like spend 5 days doing it. And we're not doing that trying to be stealthy. We're not trying to hide from the team. We are trying to find as many vulnerabilities as we can, as quickly as we can, because #time is money, right? They just want the efficiency. What they're trying to get out of the engagement is find as many vulnerabilities as possible so they can fix them. There is a different engagement known as a red team for very mature organizations, where they're not assessing particularly the system's security. They are assessing their organization's ability to respond to an attack. So there's a blue team out there, what we might call the SOC team, and I'm trying to not only hack them, but I'm trying to do it without being detected. Very, very different approach from my point of view. I'm going to go slower, I'm going to be stealthier, everything's going to be dragged out. You're not doing a red team in one day. And this is what I mean about gaming your outcomes. That company had a particular reason for this, and it worked out well in their instance, but quite often customers, they get a little bit excited with pen tests and stuff like that, and they want it to be a bit more like it is in the movies. And sadly, although my day job I think is the coolest job in the world, it's not quite like 1995's Hackers movie with Angelina Jolie. And so be very, very careful when you're asking testers to do these kinds of things. I'll just quickly summarize what you should be doing instead is, it is a good thing to tailor operations. It is a good idea to let the tester know what you're concerned about, or share with the tester the areas that you particularly think are concerning. And it's completely fine to be thinking about the differences between, are we looking for as many vulnerabilities as possible, or are we assessing our ability to respond to that kind of thing? That is a good thing, but be careful not to limit the tester in a way that is unrealistic, and you ain't getting a red team in one day. And that doesn't mean you get a report at the end that says, we passed a red team, they couldn't hack us, because you gave me freaking 7.5 hours to do it. Any questions? Thank you.